Welcome to Rising Tide Startups, where today's most exciting startup founders share their stories and strategies. They also deliver tangible lessons learned along the way that you can apply to your own startup. Each episode is a true masterclass. Make sure you take notes. Take it away, Kevin.
This is Kevin Pruitt with another episode of Rising Tide Startups, and my special guest today is Karl Maier. Karl, thanks for joining us on Rising Tide.
Happy to be here, Kevin. Excited.
We had a chance just to chat for just a minute before we hit the recording, and it's I've already grilled him, so he feels like he's already been through one interview, and now we're about to start number two. He thinks I'm getting a buy one get one free deal here today. But Karl, if you and I met at a networking event, how would you introduce yourself to me?
Kevin, I'd tell you that, what would I tell you? Of course, I would tell you that we help companies handle rapid growth. So companies get started and they, have a great idea. Somebody really knows what they're doing and they've got a couple people and they're very hands-on, and that's awesome. They should be. And they grow because they're successful and delivering great stuff. And all of a sudden they realize that, they've got 15, 30 people and they're just completely overwhelmed, pulling their hair out. And they're afraid to delegate because every time they do, it falls apart. And we bring an infrastructure to help them solve that problem.
Is it in specific areas? Is it HR? Is it management? Is it accounting? Is it operations? Or is it just how to manage people?
At the core, it is about just managing people. That is certainly the central challenge that we deal with. My experience, I've got a little bit of gray here and there.
Don't we all?
Exactly, but I've had one of those careers where mostly working in lower middle market businesses, you wear many hats. So, without reading my resume to you, I've got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas, from sales through finance to systems and whatever. So that also comes with what I do when so we've got a software that's the core of what we offer. And in some cases, most cases, like this morning, I gave a demo and a coach was working with this company and wanted to use our software. So we'd bring the software training support to support that coach, so he hadn't have to become an expert on the software. There's situations where companies reach out to us directly, and in some cases where I have time, I'll do some coaching myself.
So without going, through the entire journey, things I've looked at, listened to some other interviews you've done and kind of try to do a little pre-interview research here, but you almost seem like a little bit of a startup junkie, a little bit. You've had some other things. I know that you were kind of in the corporate side of things for a while, then all of a sudden you kind of, I think in your bio, you mentioned, you created some SaaS companies, you created some other things along this space. And I don't care how gray you are, brother, you're not that old. So, you've done some diverse things in your timeline. So walk us through that quickly.
Yeah. So see, both my grandfathers and my parents have started companies. So I guess I've got a little bit of that in my blood. Undergrad was economics and grad school was information systems, and entrepreneurship was my concentrations. I did start in corporate, 5, 6, 7 years in the corporate world. And from there, my parents twisted my arm to join the family company. Great experience, but wasn't destined to be forever. From there, is when I first really got entrepreneurial. Started a couple software companies, one of them during the .com, which of course, did not turn into Amazon or whatever. And then another one right after
You did.
that. And I absolutely am drawn towards startups. I've advised a bunch of them, worked with plenty of them. At the same time, I think the part of growing a business that I really, really like is the scaling. Once we
Mm,
come gotten past that, okay, the startup, you got to figure out what market you're in, exactly, what the business model is, all those particulars, which, some people are really, really excited about. I'm like, I kind of have to do this to get to the part that I really like, which
yeah,
is the scaling, the
yeah.
organization. So that's
That is such a crucial service. I mean, there are so many, I think, startup founders that are great at launch. They're not great at flying the plane. They can take off, they just can't fly it. They because they can't weather storms and they don't know how to navigate. They can't find the landing airport and that type of thing. So it really is a unique skill set that is kind of that, stage two rocket, that had, you can get off the ground, but somehow you got to get out of our atmosphere here. So walk us through why is that an area that you decided to kind of focus on? Was that like just a beautiful mosaic of everything that you were up to that point and just kind of prepared you for that? Or do you have just a unique interest in that kind of phase of development?
I really think it's, we all have our personality, for better or for worse, right? And my personality is about optimizing a system.
Mm,
And so a startup is really about almost unlimited possibilities. That's the cool thing about it. And for me, that's just too much. But once you get to, okay, now we've got a system, we've got our business model, but we need to optimize it. We need to manage the people. We need to really make it work, tune it. That's where I'm about now. Okay, boom. Now let's double sales again. Let's boom. I've been through, what one was 10x in less than 4 years, 7x in 4 years, 5x in 3 years, so that's where I'm excited. You get hundreds of people. Now you're in a different animal, different world. Somebody, we're going to hand the baton off to the next person then. But
I'm going to get you a t-shirt. It says, "My name is Karl Maier. I'm the human private equity ROI person." I'm the personification of private equity ROI.
I'd love it. I'd love it. Yeah. So, and yeah, like I mentioned, wide range of skill sets, you know, man, I'm not your there are people who are a lot better at whatever, accounting or systems or M&A but at that lower middle market level, I bring a reasonable level of competence at a wide range of
Mm-hmm.
things. And so you know, and that fits with my let's optimize this system. That's where man, that's cool. We can really make this work better.
You're the second interview I've done today, and the person I talked to this morning also, their degree was in economics. My degree is in economics. Your degree is in economics. So there's some theme going on here today that says, we econ majors, we got some weird trait in our DNA that says, we don't necessarily just like the analytics of things. We like the kind of the theory behind them, that we like to kind of figure things out and kind of manipulate the process, use some modeling, and, just to kind of create, to optimization. I think I love the word that you used. We want to optimize, the scaling of a business. And did I see or hear somewhere that you got kind of a little company mantra that says, our key sweet spot is from 7 to 70 employees. Did I
Yes.
hear something like that? So just talk through that a little bit about where, what's your target market?
Mhm. Right. So, you picture small company, handful of people. You've got 5 people. You just sit around a table and, right there, you can figure everything out. You don't need a big man. You don't need an org chart. You don't need titles. You just look across the table and say, you got this? Yeah. How about you? You got that? Yep. Yep. Any questions? Yes, no. We're done.
And by the way, take the trash out on your way out of the conference room because you're the janitor too.
Right. Whatever hat between the 5 of us, we got it all. And, if we need to switch hats because you're busy with this and I got to do that, awesome. I just was talking to Well, I regularly talk with companies with like about 10, 12, 15 people. And they're at that point, where it's not so big that I've, got a management team built out. If you get a
Right.
company 100, if you get to 100, you've got to have some kind of management team in
Or you're in
place.
trouble,
Or,
or you've got a mess on your hands. That's right.
you're probably going to fall back down if you don't. At 12, you can kind of, muscle through. You
Mhm.
can work extra hard and get it done. But to go to that next level, to go to, 25, you're going to have to put more management structure in
Yeah.
place. And so, 7 is beyond, that's the edge of where you can sit down at the table. So we're happy to talk to you at that point, because if you're growing, you're going to hit that problem pretty soon. And if you're beyond 70, we've got companies that we, meet when they're at 15, 25 people, and we'll still be, they'll still be using our software at 150 or whatever. But that 7 to 70 is where almost every company that we see runs into that. We've got to upgrade our management system.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And we talked about the company, but tell us the name of the company that we already haven't even mentioned yet, and kind of how did that get started? What was the spark that said, hey, we need a company that does these specific things?
Mhm. So the name of the company is Abunden. And where did that come from? So the concept of abundance is, how do we make the pie bigger? Many people have heard, do we fight over how big our slice is, or do we just make the whole pie bigger? That's the way we want to win. So that's the idea. Let's make the pie bigger, abundance. And what URL could we get? So we found abunden.com. And so that's where the name came from. And the um, the basic, business problem is one that I've been working with for 20 years, looking at these lower middle market companies, helping them grow, really trying to, like you say, that whole economics thing, which levers do we pull, what really drives the system. And over the years, built up a whole series of tools and spreadsheets and PDFs that I would use as I went into these companies, either as, consultant or as a manager. And, one day, I was working for a large consulting and accounting firm, and, good company, but, they've got their way of doing
Mhm.
things. We couldn't do incentive success fee type compensation. So, and I really wanted to build out these tools, and it just wasn't a fit. So I was like, need to go entrepreneurial to get it done. And
Yep.
so, like you say, I think where we were talking before, you said, yeah, there's that Tuesday where you just go, man, I'm out of here.
Yep. Stand on your desk, put everything in a box and walk out. Absolutely. So what year was the company actually formed?
It's just over 4 years ago, so I guess it was 2018.
Okay. And if you went back to 2018, kind of walk us through like the growth stages, in these last 4 years, and you've seen that hockey stick, that immediate up and to the right hockey stick, and you've never had any bumps along the road, and everything was perfect, and you use your own systems to manage your company well. I mean, I want to hear that story.
Oh, right. Of course, it's all, yeah, up and to the right. Yeah. Except for the parts that weren't, of course. Um, so initially, I really did focus on consulting, and like so many startups, struggled with the business model. How do I do this? Am I, a manager, fractional manager in companies? And, you know, exactly how do we do it? And it took a little while to really say, okay, we're going to have to put these tools into a SaaS organization or SaaS system. And, then it took a while to do it. I know you may find this hard to believe, but a computer system that took longer to develop than you thought. Yeah,
Shocking. That's right.
that's the first time I've ever heard
First
this.
time I've ever heard that. That's right. Double the or triple the cost and double the time allowed. There you go.
Pretty much, pretty much. So, but we eventually got there, put the features, the user interface, all the things we wanted into it. And of course, we're continue to, add features and aspects to the system. But and at first the idea was we were going to go primarily work with other business advisors, and they're going to be the way we're going to go to market. We get a business advisor, they've got a number of clients, and they get the leverage through them. And had many discussions with the business advisors. It's like, great tool, I get it. Yeah, these are all concepts not new to me. I use these, and yeah, having software to do that, that sounds great. Sounds great. I just need a client that, is at that stage,
Mm,
and it's like, oh, okay. And, so, what seemed like a great idea to have kind of that force multiplier, it's kind of like developing the system. It just took much longer to develop those relationships and get clients on board through the advisors.
mhm.
And so we continue to work with advisors. We've got some great advisors that we work with, happy to refer them business and, opportunities as they come in. But we're also going direct to the companies now. We're doing, more direct marketing to those companies, and then, bring in the advisors later. So it's kind of
Right.
flipped model a little
Right.
bit.
And a kind of a rev share, almost model, if you, to me that would also, make it easier for you to onboard, business advisors too. If you're saying, hey, actually we're bringing leads to you, instead of you having to go get them on your own. But I it's going to seem like a real sharp tangent here, off the main course. But hey, I've told you the notes. I reserve the right to chase rabbits. But I'm curious that, especially based on your history, the history of kind of the serial creation, mode that you've been in. So if this crashed tonight and you were starting again tomorrow, I am really curious, what would you focus on? What would you do? You're not betraying Abunden by saying I would start a t-shirt company, but what I guess what area would you want to focus in that just be an interest that you think really has potential?
Okay, so make sure I'm following the question. So Abunden, poof, magically disappears. It's
Magically
just
disappeared. Nobody's mad at you. Everybody's happy. They've all retired and living on the beach, and just
move,
you're
move on to
starting
the.
something new. Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, I feel like we're kind of going through some pretty big changes in the world. I think COVID really accelerated the
Yep.
changes. I feel like a lot of manufacturing is coming back to the United States. I've heard about, a lot of steel mills under construction, chip fabrication. But, I'm here in Houston, and there's a lot of manufacturing, historically tied to the oil field, but a lot of heavy industry and manufacturing here. And with the disruption to the supply chain and just the world changing, that's what I'm hearing. So yeah, if I was going to do something right now, I think that's the trend, and I'd absolutely look into finding a niche in manufacturing that I could move into.
That is really an interesting take. Because you would think, with the kind of post-industrial revolution that we're kind of getting around that. Hey, Amazon delivers everything we need. Why do we need to create anything? But you're exactly right. I mean, the supply chain has been disrupted, and it looks like that it's not going to be back to normal, even if nothing changed, it's not going to be back to normal for a couple of years, maybe. So I do think that there is a not just oil reserves and things that we're looking at right now, but just the whole idea of how do you kind of bring that a little closer to home, so you can kind of control the full length of the chain,
Right.
type thing, instead of instead of being, subject to, severe disruption that's completely out of your control. So
Mm.
yeah, I really, that's an interesting take. Anything specific in that realm that just kind of jumps out? You think, actually, I would probably focus a little more just kind of in this area, this specific vertical. And I'm taking notes because I'm looking for a job tomorrow. So I just want to, get your ideas. So not at all.
Yeah, I think there's just so many little things that I don't know, since the 80s or whatever, have been produced in China. You know, the geopolitics,
Hmm.
demographics of the world are changing. I've heard that the cost of labor in China has gone up since like 2000, like 14x, while
Wow.
productivity only doubled. So the price of labor's gone up. The one-child policies means that the population's
Shrinking
shrinking.
labor market. Yeah.
Economics people can pretty quickly tell you what that's going to mean to the price of labor there. Um, you know, just a lot of reasons. I think that, the demographics of US and Mexico are pretty strong, you know, um, probably something that involved, that you could leverage robotics
Hmm.
would be really, you know, I think a great opportunity. I don't have a particular, you know, um, car speedometers. I don't know, but
Yeah.
nothing particular, comes to mind. But it doesn't have to be a super complex product. But if you're manufacturing it here and it's been in China, there could easily be another supply chain disruption. Who knows when?
Oh, any time. Yeah. It's
Right.
interesting. If you were a chip manufacturer, I think you could start working tomorrow, whether it's for cars or any other electronics or something like that. I'm just drive by the, car lots right now and just see how empty they are. I mean, it is amazing to me. They got them created. They're just waiting on the one more piece and then they can be on the road. But it is crazy. I mean, just the market right now. But yeah, I was really curious to hear your answer on that, especially, based on, like I said, your history. But as we kind of transition right now into, one of my favorite parts of our chats here is really kind of the mentoring moment, chat. And I love to have founders on, especially founders that have, kind of been down the road for a few years and have had some experiences and had some ups and downs and had weathered some storms. And so if you were talking to somebody that's further behind in the journey, than you are right now, that are just getting started or thinking about starting, what are one or two really key kind of nuggets of just gold that you would say, I really wish I would have known this when I started my business? And some that would be, pretty agnostic, it doesn't specifically have to be with business consultation or, scaling a business or whatever, but just general good practices.
Right. Um, One thing that I've both experienced and also seen numerous times is you start a company with a partner,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be really powerful. Hewlett and Packard, and list a whole bunch of partners that have worked out fantastic. But for a partner, one, I'd look at your kind of mission, values, understanding of how you look at the world. Try and get as good a sense of that as you can. I think that'll help you head off potential problems and select a partner that's really compatible. But the second part of that is, it's a business marriage,
Mm-hmm. The second
but
time today I've heard that.
but it's also probably not intended to be a till death do us part marriage.
Mm.
You know, I've seen medical situations change. I've seen priorities for family
Life
reasons,
circumstances, sure. Yeah.
1,000 reasons. So
Yeah.
when you form that partnership, and whether it's a 2-person or a 4-person or whatever, however it is, make a plan for how you're going to break it up,
Mm-hmm.
which is gotta, when I've told people that before, man, the look on their face, like, that's a betrayal. I'm so excited about working with this person. You're telling me I'm going to plan for a divorce. What? But I've also seen the pain that's come with that when, you disagree on, how to use the office space, how to price a product, what kind of distributions to take. So that would be something pretty universal that I'd recommend.
Anything else that comes to mind? I mean, I love that, I remember just the notes I took, make sure the partners have the same vision or compatible, but have a dissolution prenup, that you've included in the process. But any other just kind of generic advice that you think would be really helpful?
When you're thinking about a startup, bias for action, bias for doing it. To me, another way to phrase that is, if you're 100% sure of how this is going to work and what you're going to do, you're too late. You should be moving when you're somewhere but like 60, 70, 80% sure. Realize that you are going to run into things you couldn't have expected. And if you're going to go do a startup, be okay with that.
I'd love that. I've done this for 4 years. I've never had anybody kind of like quantify that, when you're ready, that says, hey, if you're 100% ready, you're too late. It's kind of like is it Reed Hastings? Yeah, the LinkedIn, founder, he said, if you're not embarrassed by your first product, you waited too late to launch it, or something like that. I mean, it's kind of in that same vein that, you are too late. I love that. Love that. Well, Karl, this is it's been a pleasure to just kind of hear the story of, how you got started, and kind of wrap my head around, just Karl Maier, the founder and the gentleman here. How do we do that? The things that he likes, and the things that he's, kind of shared your history and your timeline with us a little bit. But is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would just like to, wrap us up with today, that you think that would be also helpful to our listeners?
Well, I love scaling, and extremely successful entrepreneur that I know once told me that every time you double your sales in your business, everything breaks. You're outgrow your systems, your communication falls apart, and you got to be constantly fixing it as you grow at a rapid pace. And that always struck me, so I thought I'd share that.
Has that been your experience as well?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. We, used to be, I had to tell Susie that we got a new order. Now I got Susie and Matt, and I forgot to tell Matt, and now something didn't get done. And so yeah.
Or I've delegated it to Susie, and Susie forgot that I delegated that to her. And she's got 5 people she has to tell now, because she's now the team leader. I'm just playing golf on Thursdays now. So Susie, what are you thinking? You're making me look bad here. So yeah, that is really an interesting, I love the way you kind of close this out today. That is a sage piece of advice that it reminds me a little bit of an interview I did probably a month ago, that the guy that I was interviewing said, every year we recycle virtually the bottom 10% of everything. It's like the even staff, where it goes to staff, it's operations, it is clientele. They just kind of say, you know what, that's the only way we can refresh, hit the refresh button, on the business. And it's kind of in this same vein that says, you really do need a complete, or I guess not necessarily redesign, but you need to certainly review your practices and processes, when you scale, because they're different problems that you're trying to solve for sure. Has that been your experience?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's great observation. Great observation. Absolutely.
Well, Karl, where can people find you online? Where's the best place?
Of course, you can go to www.abunden.com, find us there. You can find Karl Maier on LinkedIn, and Abunden is on all your favorite social media, whether that's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube.
Well, I actually sent you a connection request earlier today on LinkedIn, so I'd love to get connected and just stay in the conversation. But Karl, thanks again for just taking time today on this late Friday afternoon, and so we're closing up and heading into the weekend, and I want to see the abundance that the weekend is going to bring for all of us. But thank you for just sharing your story and just playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Karl, have a great weekend.
My pleasure, Kevin. Thank you.
Another episode in the books. We hope you heard some great takeaways. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on iTunes and YouTube. As always, thanks for listening to Rising Tide.